believe in Canada? This Liberal Prime Minister won't even pay taxes in Canada.
What if the man promising to save Canada was being controlled by the billionaires who already own it? Mark Carney, the calm, charming banker-turned-prime minister, built his entire image around stability and integrity. The soft-spoken global thinker who was supposed to rescue Canada from chaos. But behind the speeches, the polite smiles, and the global finance buzzwords, there's a web of billionaires, bankers, and backroom deals so deep that even Carney's own supporters are starting to ask, who's really pulling the strings? Because the deeper you dig, the more one thing becomes clear. Mark Carney isn't just another politician. He's the product of a system that's been quietly shaping Canada's destiny for decades. A system run not by voters, but by the wealthy elite who believe democracy is something to be managed. It all started with a question in Parliament, one that Carney refused to answer. Pierre Poilievre, fiery as ever, stood up and demanded the truth. Where is this $1 trillion of Canadian money going? Why is it being shipped to the United States under Carney's watch? Pension funds? Private investments? Corporate bailouts? But instead of answering, Carney did what he does best. He dodged. He pivoted. He wrapped himself in diplomatic language and started praising Donald Trump's so-called Middle East peace plan. It was a deflection so blatant, it almost looked rehearsed. And when Poilievre pressed again, Carney snapped back. I was there. I was in the Oval Office. I was in the meetings. That's when Canadians saw something new. Not calm professionalism, not quiet confidence. Ego. Pure, bruised ego. Carney wasn't defending Canadians. He was defending himself. The $1 trillion wasn't just a throwaway line. It was a financial earthquake hiding in plain sight. Carney's government quietly discussed plans to move up to $1 trillion in private Canadian investment south of the border, to the United States. Think about that. Pension funds, private savings, retirement investments, redirected out of Canada, with barely a word of public debate. So the question isn't if Carney is helping the global elite, it's how much. Is this about strengthening Canada's economy, or strengthening Wall Street's grip over it? Because the same man who talks about Canadian sovereignty is also the same man who spent years working inside the world's most powerful financial institutions, from the Bank of England to Brookfield Asset Management, one of the largest investment giants on the planet. And Brookfield isn't just a company. It's a club. A global power circle tied to Qatar, the UAE, New York, London, and the quiet corridors of elite wealth that never see daylight. When Carney left his cushy job at the Bank of England, he didn't come home to serve Canadians out of patriotism. He joined Brookfield, the multi-trillion-dollar asset management empire that thrives on global instability. During his time there, Carney helped design something called the Brookfield Global Transition Fund, a green finance vehicle that pulled in billions from Middle Eastern investors, including the UAE. It was sold as a climate initiative, but behind the PR, it was a perfect way for global billionaires to reposition their money, away from public accountability and into private profit. When Carney eventually stepped into politics, those same networks came with him. The timing wasn't coincidence. February 2021, the first fund. February 2024, the second. Just months before his leadership campaign launched. Coincidence? Or coordination? Because if you trace the timing of those deals, the same investors who made billions off Carney's funds are now the same ones quietly backing his political rise. The numbers are staggering. Carney's campaign raised $5 million in donations, a record-breaking war chest fueled almost entirely by Canada's richest neighborhoods: Toronto, Ottawa, Rockcliffe, Yorkville, Rosedale, the postcodes of power. And who wrote the checks? Not working Canadians, not middle-class families, but billionaires, bankers, and boardroom insiders. Names like John McCall McBain, the billionaire philanthropist who funds elite university scholarships; Bruce Flatt, CEO of Brookfield Asset Management; Donald Guloin, the former CEO of Manulife; the Irving family from Atlantic Canada, worth over $14 billion; Scott McCain of McCain Foods; and of course, the Desmarais dynasty, the same power brokers who've bankrolled the Trudeau family for generations. Every one of them hit the maximum donation limit. Every one of them connected to the same corporate web Carney once profited from. And here's the kicker. Carney even took donations from bankers in New York, Paris, London, and Geneva. The so-called Canadian savior, funded by foreign elites. To understand Carney's connections, you have to go offshore, literally. Because the deeper you go into the donor list, the more you find the fingerprints of global wealth management. The Bronfman family, the same dynasty linked to offshore accounts and Liberal Party financing. Stephen Bronfman, Trudeau's old friend and advisor, caught in the Paradise Papers scandal. He moved massive sums through tax havens while helping shape national policy. Now, that same network is showing up again in Carney's orbit. Coincidence? Or is this Canada's modern political playbook? Hide the money, then buy the message. Even the Brookfield empire itself has roots in the Pagurian Corporation, a web of offshore holdings that evolved into the modern financial giant we know today. When critics call Carney a globalist banker, they're not exaggerating. They're just connecting the dots. Carney loves to talk about climate leadership, sustainability, green transitions, net zero finance. But take a look at who's backing him, and the picture gets dark fast. Among his biggest donors are oil magnates, pipeline financiers, and energy investors whose fortunes were built on the very industries Carney claims to be regulating. When the Keystone XL pipeline collapsed, Carney didn't fight for Alberta's workers. He didn't fight for Canada's energy independence. He said nothing. Silence. Because while Canadian families lost jobs and provinces lost billions, Carney's financial allies were already moving their money into new funds, new markets, and new opportunities that made them richer. The same man who preaches climate ethics is profiting from both sides, oil and green. It's not hypocrisy, it's strategy. Here's where it all comes together. Carney's every move, from Brookfield to the Bank of England to his leadership campaign, aligns perfectly with one global trend: the consolidation of financial power under the banner of green capitalism. In public, it's about saving the planet. Behind the scenes, it's about control. The power to dictate where investments flow, the power to label which industries live and which die, the power to reshape entire economies under the watchful eye of those who profit from both ends. Critics call it a globalist takeover. Supporters say it's strategic modernization. But when the same billionaires funding Carney are the ones writing global climate policies and controlling energy investments, you start to realize this isn't politics. It's a financial coup, disguised as progress. And Canada? It's the test subject. For all his talk of service and humility, Carney can't hide the arrogance anymore. Every appearance, every answer in Parliament drips with condescension. When he says, "I was there," he's not talking to Canadians. He's talking down to them. He wants everyone to know he's part of the club, the insider, the one who dines with presidents and negotiates with princes. But Canadians are starting to see through the act. They see a man more obsessed with reputation than results, more loyal to corporate donors than to voters, more comfortable with billionaires in Geneva than with working families in Calgary or Saskatoon. The illusion is cracking, and Carney knows it. This story isn't just about one man. It's about an entire system, one that's been quietly transforming Canada into a financial playground for the ultra-rich. Carney's rise isn't accidental. It's the culmination of decades of elite networking, institutional loyalty, and economic grooming. From Trudeau's inner circle to global boardrooms, the same names keep appearing. The same money, the same ideology, the same belief that the world should be run by those who understand it. And the tragedy? Most Canadians still believe they're voting for leaders who represent them. But behind the curtain, the decisions are made long before ballots are cast. Carney may wear the maple leaf on his lapel, but his power base isn't in Ottawa. It's in New York, London, and Dubai. So the next time you hear a politician promise to build Canada strong, ask yourself one thing. Who's paying for it? Because in Carney's Canada, it's not about building a nation. It's about managing an asset. Mark Carney's story is the story of modern politics. Polished faces, billionaire backers, and hidden alliances dressed up as progress. He talks about fairness, equality, and climate justice. But behind the curtain is a network of financiers who never lose, no matter which party wins. And that's the truth no one in Ottawa wants to admit. Because maybe Carney isn't betraying Canada at all. Maybe he's just doing what every elite before him has done. Reminding